Welcome to Skinside Out, where we uncover the science, trends, and truths behind skin health. Your trusted guide to the world of dermatology. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional.
Welcome to Skinside Out, where science meets beauty. I'm your host, Dr. Zain, with Heather and special guests MJ and Dr. Jaffry. So I'm going to explain why I'm interested in clinical trials. So it's a little personal. So my father was in pharmaceuticals his whole career. So he was on the R&D side. So I always found it fascinating to hear about what he did. However, research, especially bench research, was not my interest. So I did an internship over the summer at a pharmaceutical company where my dad worked, Roche. I absolutely hated it. But I really did love patient care, and I loved how we can innovate, bring new drugs to trial, and help patients. So I always had this interest, and I was always having this itch to do clinical trials at some point in my career. After I established my practice here in North Carolina, Noor Dermatology and Aesthetics, I happened to cross paths with an innovator in the space, Dr. Jaffry, who is, the head of Revival Research Institute, which is a CRO. They conduct clinical trials all over the country and all over the world. So, we are actually partnering with them to conduct clinical trials in dermatology in our office. So we have a lot of studies that we're going to be participating in. I'm really excited. And, we have MJ here, who is also going to be helping us with those studies as our, CRO manager. And she's just going to be, holding our hands throughout the process because it is a bit of a different experience. So I wanted to kind of just give a little background as to why we're doing it and announce this great partnership that we're having between Noor Dermatology Aesthetics and Revival Research Institute. So first question, and I'll direct this towards MJ. So what is clinical research?
Well, thank you for asking that question. I think that's very important for everyone to know. And thank you for the introduction. Again, my name's MJ. I am the site lead for your site, so I'm going to be helping conduct all the clinical trials. With that, there's a lot of information that comes with that, and I feel like that can become very overwhelming for a lot of people very quickly. And it also is a little bit taboo at times. Like when people hear clinical research, they're like, what does that mean? Like, am I going to be a guinea pig? Like, what does that mean? So I always start big picture. Clinical research, what does that mean? Well, clinical research is a specialized field of medicine that is focused on finding better ways to diagnose, prevent, and treat disease. It's essentially where science meets patient care. Here's how I explain it to people, just to, I guess, make it a little bit more sense. First, I tell people, let's think big pharma, okay? Big pharma, that could be major pharmaceutical companies, it could be smaller biotechs, it could be researchers, scientists, physicians like yourself. Essentially, their focus is developing something new, whether that is a new medication, a medical device, a diagnostic tool. That's what their focus is. But it can't just go straight from the lab to a pharmacy or to your office.
There's a few steps in between, right?
There's a lot of steps in between. Exactly. Yeah. And that's where your clinical trials comes in. So before anything can be prescribed or widely used, it has to go through a testing phase to make sure everything is safe and effective, like it's going to work for you. So what is a clinical trial? A clinical trial is a research study that involves human participants that test how well a new product, treatment, or procedure works. It's a highly controlled step-by-step process designed to answer some of the most important questions in medicine, like we are all well aware of. Number one, is it safe? Is it something that you can take? If it's not something you can take, we can't prescribe it. Does it actually work? Is it going to be effective? There's a lot of drugs on the market already that are being used to treat conditions that you prescribe already. But are there treatments that could be better, that could have a more positive reaction than ones that are already currently on the market? They want to know what the right dose and method is. So, do you need to take it daily? Do you need to take it weekly, monthly? Sometimes you take it every 6 months. There's a varying amount of dosing that goes into prescribing a medication, but to figure that out, you have to start with a clinical trial. Same with figuring out like the method. Is it going to be an oral tablet? Is it going to be a capsule? Is it going to be an IV? Is it going to be injection? They got to start somewhere. It's a clinical trial. And overall, just who benefits from it most.
Yeah.
Every clinical trial, they do follow a strict protocol, which to most people doesn't matter to them. It's essentially a really, really long document that explains an entire detailed plan of exactly what's being studied, who can participate, what tests or procedures will be done, and how safety will be monitored every step of the way. Now, what does that mean in dermatology?
Mm-hmm.
So in dermatology, clinical trials are especially critical. Skin conditions like we are all aware of, for example, acne, eczema, rosacea, alopecia areata, they are all not only physical health problems and ailments that, affect our physical health, but it also affects our confidence and our quality of life.
Mm.
Luckily for us, clinical trials, they keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in dermatology and helping us better understand conditions and explore new treatment options. So that way we can offer better patient care going forward.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. So when I was in training and residency, I, participated in clinical trials with some of the attendings that I worked with and in private practice as well. And some of these medications that we were doing studies on are now in market. And I find that so remarkable. And we're being able to help so many patients. And like Heather, like, the biologics, I mean,
Yeah.
that's changed the game.
It really has.
Yeah, I mean, so many of our patients have benefited. I mean, do you recall any stories like from these drugs that have really helped patients?
Yeah, one of my really good friends was actually on the clinical trials for Keytruda. So pembrolizumab, which is used to treat melanoma. So she had a really good outcome, but she was a part of that clinical trial, and I think it made a huge difference in her life and her quality of life.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. And I know that big pharma gets a bad rep in the press,
All the
and
time.
you really have to take it back a second. I mean, big pharma is responsible for all these innovations. Billions of dollars they pour into research and development to create a single drug that can impact so many lives. So, I mean, everyone's complaining about how expensive drugs are, but research is expensive.
Mhm.
And I'm sure Dr. Jaffry, I mean, he can speak about this, how difficult it is to bring drug to market. So let us introduce Dr. Jaffry. He is an expert. If you could introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your career, and then also how clinical trials have really changed the game in dermatology.
First of all, thank you everyone for having me on this podcast. You guys are all doing an amazing job. And I think the most important thing I think this podcast is doing is to provide awareness to the general population. And sometimes we don't even know what we don't know, but these podcasts are really educational tools for people who are looking for answers. So many times, as we know that, uh, if we get into any trouble like healthcare issues, we go to the doctors and we find the right answers because the drugs are already discovered in the last 100 years. We have a lot of vaccines, we have a lot of medications. But once in a while, as a physician, you know that you see a patient, you try one drug, it doesn't work, go for the second one and third one. So the current drugs which have worked for millions of patients still not work for few patients. And you cannot imagine the frustration that patient is suffering from. Uh, just for example, I've gone through some things in life when a patient has itching, but no drug which was out there was helping that patient. Till a new discovery was made and that patient got benefit. So even though drugs are same, but each human body reacts to it differently. So my journey has been very interesting. I was trained as a physician. I practiced for 5, 6 years. And I was managing a very large practice as an internal medicine doctor. And between myself and my colleagues, we were seeing around 200 to 300 patients a day.
Wow.
And we were seeing like my life was dedicated from going from one room to the second and third and fourth. And definitely were impacting a large majority of population in that area where I was practicing. And I think later I realized, and it can have a bigger impact to basically go in a discovery phase to find out cures where there's no cure, especially in oncology with dermatology and pathology. So that was the inspiration came in. And for that, I was told that I have to do an MBA. I did the MBA from England. And then I worked for a very good, prominent company of Johnson Johnson. The name of the company is Janssen. So I worked for them for 6 years in international business development to understand from discovery to basically final launch of the products, 6 years. And since 2000, I was brought to US. I worked for J&J for a year. And then 14 years with GlaxoSmithKline, another very powerful company out of England, and launched many products which changed the lives of people, like in asthma, COPD, Alzheimer's disease, cancer. Like there was no cure before. And I can go on for different examples. But for the shortest of time, I think we are going to focus on what does this drug discovery looks like. It looks so simple. You go to the pharmacist and get the pill and you eat it. But how the journey starts? Journey starts from a scientist's mind who thinks about a classification of drugs or areas which have unmet needs, or maybe they are needs, but they are not specifically have reached to the final conclusion or get the best drugs. And they say no as a board that we have to find out better solution or a new solution or new drug from concept. Then they go on the computer models. In last 70 years, and this is the most beneficial time in our lifetime. So anybody who has survived till now, I think are getting the most benefit, not because what is happening now, but what has happened in last 100 years, what the journey looked like. So we don't start when we are looking for a molecule from point zero. We actually start from point X or Y, and we have to find out 2 or 3 things because all that work has already been done by our ancestors. So the journey starts from there. Then when the group agrees that this is a good new drug or a different drug, or we need a different drug, they go to the concept. From concept, they go to libraries of molecules. All big companies have not thousands, but millions of molecules which are on shelf. So they go and they anticipate that these molecules may work on certain disorders and diseases. They pick up 10 or 15 of them, they test them in computer models. So with AI, which has been used in this industry for a long time, they assess this molecule will work in certain disease states. It also predicts it can have side effects and all those things. From there, it is manufactured to make it a chemical or a molecule. The most common word is molecule. And that molecule is now tested in first very small animals. Unfortunately, mice is the most common animal that where things are used for months and years to really validate 2 things only. First is safety. They want to see that not a single mice die by receiving that molecule of medicine. And then those tests are passed, then they look for the dosage and anticipate the dose. That is multiplied at numbers, and that keeps on going in a larger bodies of mammals and animals to further test. And that is all called preclinical. From preclinical side, once that's done, it goes to the larger animals, and all that information is called preclinical clinical trials. And there are companies who does that a very good job. So once that data is provided, it will also are completed under the supervision of FDA. All the final reports are submitted to FDA, and then companies go back to FDA. They say we are very comfortable that we believe no patient is going to die in phase 1 trials, and FDA gets the approval. There's a very significant, strong protocol is written for the whole process. Then their companies are selected who can do this phase 1, and there are certain human beings are selected who volunteer themselves, and I think they're very daring people. These people, usually 99% of the cases, do not have any disorder until and unless they are suffering from cancer. Cancer is the only disease where it's not tested in normal people who do not have disease. So these people could be from 25 to 100 people who they test these medications. They kept them under observation from 5 days to 25 days in very confined places. These people volunteer. They are monitored every few hours, 2 or 3 hours, or I would say consistently they are monitored for their pulse rate, blood pressure, effects on the body, blood, and everything checked very thoroughly. And those results are captured. So again, safety is the biggest priority. And the second, efficacy, like they're not looking for efficacy, but they want to make sure the dose is tolerated by these people. If any actions or reactions happen that is noted, that information is submitted with FDA. FDA further approves that, and then the company goes for the phase 2 trials. This is the first time, other than cancer situation, all other medications are tested now in humans who are suffering from certain disorder. And there are very significant lists they have to go through to make sure they are not suffering from different disorders. They have specific traits, they have certain disorder, and they are selected for the study. And they stay in the study depending on the decision of FDA from 3 months to 6 months or 1 year. They again complete the study. Again, the biggest goal always remains the safety. And the second is efficacy. Is the drug is working on those people? So this is the completion of phase 2. 90% of the drugs fail by phase 2 trials. So think about if 1,000 drugs start the journey from preclinical, by the end of phase 2, 90% already died, which means your almost $900 million to $1 billion is already gone to waste. It's not waste. This is the only process that you can do it. And the few molecules which survive, they enter into phase 3 trials. And now the drug is tested in more than 400, 500 patients, not only US, but worldwide. And now the new expectation is it has to be diversified because the drugs are same, but we all have different genetic makeup. And it has been known now that we all behave differently on different drugs. So as a general rule of thumb, it is tested in a variety of different genetic makeups in different people all over the world. And that data could be needed for 500 patients to 5,000 patients, depending on what is the best score. So when the study is complete, it's basically seen by the scientists, it's compiled by statisticians, all the data is completed, submitted to FDA, FDA review everything. And I always joke about it. Even if a patient wakes up at night during the study and fall on the ground because of the carpet, we still have to report to FDA. If the FDA make a judgment, if there's a correlation between 3 cases that happen and that will become a side effect, or if it happens to more than 7 or 8 patients, it becomes a big red flag, which pharmaceutical companies have to really prove that this is not the case, which can lead to FDA may ask to do further studies for clarification, or they may give the approval with a caution, which is called black box warning. So when you get any prescription or prescribing details, you see there's a black box image that we are still reviewing the study, which means the company had to do further investigation, which are called phase 4 studies. And then they focus on a very certain niche area and they check it for like 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. And they collect data of 1 million patients over the period of time to make sure that what the suspicion was not there. And if the suspicion is true, I've seen the drugs. There's a very famous drug called Propulsor. In 2001, it was used by millions of patients and has amazing impact. But there was a concern that it could have a QT prolongation, like ECG, that changes. It is prolonging, which means if somebody has a heart problem, they can have a heart attack. Even though it was never proven, but FDA was not comfortable. And actually, Johnson & Johnson pulled that medication from the market. And it was a loss for patients and also for the company. And they lost billions of dollars. So these things are very critically important to think about it. And that is, I think, the most important thing. So I hope I answered your question or give some details for people to think about how the process works.
Yeah, that was a very comprehensive explanation. And I think that you hit on the different phases that we hear about, and now we exactly know what those mean. So thank you for that. You really highlighted patient safety throughout this whole process. Can you tell me a little bit more about how we safeguard patient safety?
For regarding patient safety, I truly believe that the biggest, the most important thing, I think in our lifetime, I think we have to be very happy that FDA, and I've as you know, I've traveled all over the world and work in different areas, different countries, but still, FDA has the most stringent, strongest process a human mind can think about to understand the safety through testing the drugs or these molecules to ensure that nobody is compromised because of their health. So there's such a rigorous process. Whatever I've described, to really put it together, it takes almost like 1 million hours to put all these documentation together and basically then go through the process. So the Organizational Revival Research Institute has to go through each and every process stepwise to ensure that we are following each and every step that is expected by FDA based on their hundreds of years of experience. And they're one of the best scientists in the world who reviews all this data, and they make final decision if the drug should be approved and it can come to the market. So no matter how good the drug is, but there are major side effects where somebody can lose a life or have a major effect on their parts of the body, FDA will not approve that. So that is a done deal. So that's why I think one message I want everybody to hear through this podcast, if they are part of the research, as I described, by the time it reaches to phase 1, phase 2, it has already gone years of testing through every human mind you can think about. Especially most of you will have access to phase 2 trials. By this time, it's already tested in humans. So the chances of any being worried about anything, I think, is not there. Patients who are suffering from cancer, from dermatological disorders, and they are trying drugs for years and years. And those drugs are not working. Or they're working, but they're not effective because you see the symptoms again after 15 days and 20 days. And I think nobody would know better than Dr. Hussain yourself that you have certain patients who are very hard to treat or they are not basically getting treated. I really encourage those patients to think about these resources, this education. And now with the help of like Noor Dermatology, I think we'll have a very strong testing ground in Raleigh, North Carolina area that will be testing most advanced medications for those areas which do not have the best solutions or answers. So I think those patients should definitely look into those opportunities. A lot of data is available on the website, and they should look for these new, innovative therapies which were not available there. So these therapies will be available 5 years down the road, but having the benefit of being part of the research that you will have the access at least 5 or 6 years in advance from rest of the population. So that's number one benefit. Also from a perspective of humankind and what we are giving back to the community. And this is why I think I'm so much always excited about it, that this is not what we are doing for now. Actually, we are helping our future generations not to suffer from the same ailments and problems and issues that our past generations have gone through. So you're contributing a lot by being participating in these clinical trials, by volunteering in these programs. So I think you're really changing the healthcare and our future kind. So I think this is such a honorable opportunity for all of us to participate in that. Transparency, as I mentioned, that no matter what happens, if a patient starts coughing because the patient got a flu, but if they are in the study, we still have to report to the FDA. FDA take it very seriously. They think if it's like one, it could be a flu, it would be a individual case, but it's like more than 2 or 3 people are suffering from the same thing. They take it very seriously, up to killing a project, which could be as long as you can imagine. A real life impact, like it's really all these modalities basically give a complete opportunity for the physicians to treat like so many complex disorders where there's no alternatives available over there. I think I would like to share this case. We just invited our patients who participate in a lot of dermatology trials, and I will never forget that moment. A lady came to me, and there were like probably 100 patients who were visiting. We just had a lunch and learn, and these patients like completed their clinical studies. So kind of like mid-aged lady came to me and said, I heard like, hey, you are running this program. I said, yes, ma'am, I am doing it. She said, I want to personally come and thank you to organize this program because for last 15 years, I had a very bad itching and I live my life. So every day, my biggest curse, I believe that's a curse on my life and this will not change. And I've used every medication you can imagine available on planet Earth. I've traveled to Mayo Clinic. I went to Cleveland Clinic. I went worldwide. I went to even Australia to find out cure. Didn't cure. So the biggest problem I had in my life that I couldn't sleep because of that itching. I cannot sleep. I can't sleep more than like 20, 30 minutes. So I basically get tired after 5 or 6 days, then I'll get like 1 or 2 hours nap because I'm completely numb at that time. So by using this medication, this trial, like my skin is clear. I have no itching. And the best thing I enjoy that I can sleep like 7, 8 hours a night. And I actually sleep like 10 or 11 hours because I enjoy sleep so much. So these are like simple things. And I was just thinking like how impactful that story was. And this is how we impact through clinical research, not only to those patients, but our future generations. So I think it's a great process to have in our range. And I think everybody who's in Raleigh or North Carolina, I think should really fine tune to future projects that we are going to be doing, and basically looking for all the opportunities that are coming up. And please help in any shape or form finding patients who may be suffering. They may not be able to know or hear about this podcast or Dr. Noor, but please make sure that you take this message to them and help them understand. If you have somebody in your family and your friends, and you say they have severe problems, they have severe itching, they are going through uh, unusual situations, please guide them. And we are hoping to start more projects with Dr. Hussain, and I think MJ and Heather. We are all here to support you.
Yeah, what a touching story. And you can see how these medications can really improve quality of life. And that's what we're here to do.
Mhm.
A lot of people have this misconception in dermatology, like, it's just the skin. It's not real serious disease, but it can have such big implications on how we view ourselves, our confidence, but also just our quality of life, like the itching. I mean, I've had patients who have had itch that literally was a curse, like Dr. Jaffry had mentioned. Like they just scratch all the time and they are just miserable. I mean, we see patients all the time who
Yeah.
have these conditions that, they're just miserable, and it really does impact their quality of life. So by providing these trials, we are allowing another avenue of helping these patients who previously could not be helped with the current medications on market. I mean, Heather, we've seen some pretty interesting cases in clinic.
Mhm.
Any cases that come to mind?
As far as itching goes, or
Oh,
just in
just in
general?
general, like in your dermatology career.
I think there's a lot of different examples. I do kind of want to piggyback on that and agree with you completely that with the itching, that is such
Hmm.
a um, big thing for patients. I mean, you're up at night, you can't sleep, you're scratching all day. It's a huge impact on your quality of life. And I think if we can help improve that, it makes a huge difference on their quality
Yeah,
of
I
life.
have had patients who had decades of constant, skin irritation, itching, just absolutely miserable. Like some of them, like decades, like, talking like 30, 40, 50 years. And some of these medications were able to give them relief.
Yeah.
And they were so grateful. And I think that that is the impact we can make by providing clinical trials as an option for these patients.
Yeah, and even, just with psoriasis, there are so many medications out there, but there are patients who have tried a handful, even more than 5 options, and they're still not clear. I know, MJ, you had mentioned dermatology is not just this physical,
Disorder,
yeah,
ailments,
yeah,
something that, compromises your physical well-being. Because of course, if you walk outside and you have, like this big old red patch, of course
Hmm.
people are gonna notice that. But not only is it affecting your physical appearance, like it impacts your confidence, and you're maybe not gonna want to wear short sleeves or not,
yeah.
even want to go outside for risk of having to showcase that of yourself. And it does negatively impact the way that you think about yourself.
Yeah, and even some conditions like psoriasis
Hmm.
or lupus, it's something that can impact the internal body too. Like psoriasis, you're at an increased risk for heart disease and diabetes. You have an inflammatory response on the inside of your body to your joints. So if we can help control all of that, we're not just impacting the skin, we're impacting other organs too. And I didn't know if you wanted to mention some clinical trials that we have going on. Just
Yeah, I think
go
MJ would be able to kind of explain some of the clinical trials we have in place.
Yeah, so we currently have two that are coming on board. I feel like by the time this podcast goes live, we will already be actively seeing patients. So we're very excited about that. That is a psoriasis and obesity trial. So if that is something that you're currently struggling with, whether it's weight-related, psoriasis-related, it is a co-occurring disorder, which I think Dr. Hussein would be better able to explain those two conditions than I would. But if, yeah, those two conditions right there, if that is something that you are struggling with, we would love to have you give us a call so we could talk a little bit more about that to see if it might be a good fit for you. I don't know if you want to add anything to that
Yeah,
one.
so I mean, psoriasis, like Heather had mentioned, has, some comorbidities, including cardiovascular disease. And we all know that obesity, part of the metabolic syndrome, has interfaces with inflammation throughout the body. And that's why we see a lot of inflammation, not only internally, but also on the skin.
The other study that we are currently investigating is an adolescent study, which I know sounds scary, but keep in mind they do not move any clinical trial to adolescents unless, of course, that condition only target adolescents until the medication has already been approved in adults. So this study, it's an adolescent alopecia areata study. The medication that they are investigating has already been approved in adults, and they are now testing it in adolescent populations. So we will have more information on that to come. But again, if this is something that you are struggling with, please give us a call. We are happy to help. You will also be compensated for your time and travel.
Mm.
Now, we don't like to say you're paid for your participation because that can sound like coercion. We're not trying to coerce you at all. Everything in a clinical trial is voluntary. So at any point in time, if you do agree to participate and it ends up being something that you're not comfortable with, you can withdraw without any negative consequence. It won't affect your relationship with Revival. It won't affect your relationship with Noor Dermatology and Dr. Hussein and Heather. It's just another option for you to be able to get the treatment that you need that, you might not be able to get due to either what is currently on the market or because your insurance just won't provide it.
Yeah, just circling back, Heather, can you tell us what alopecia areata is and what extent of alopecia areata we are looking for this trial?
Yes, so alopecia areata is a type of hair loss that is technically autoimmune. So your immune system is creating this inflammatory response to target your hair follicles. So most classically, the easiest way to describe it is these coin-like patches of hair loss, very discrete areas. It's not general thinning, it's really those very discrete circle patches. But it can transition or progress to alopecia totalis, which is alopecia areata affecting your entire scalp. Yeah, but I think the biggest thing is more on the severe side of alopecia areata.
Yeah, and alopecia areata is one of those conditions that has a lot of stigma and a lot of patients being very self-conscious because of the way that they look. I mean, I've had patients who, you know, had other people think that they were cancer patients, that they're on chemotherapy and, they were made fun of or bullied for the way that they looked, especially kids. And it's really heartbreaking to hear. And it's just really heartwarming to see all the advances we've seen. I do think that, being able to offer a medication that can have such a profound impact on your quality of life is just incredible. And it's a great opportunity to really help those in need.
Yeah, MJ, I think you brought up a really good point, just kind of focusing it back to the patient. The patient's core and their rights to consent to this clinical trial is really important. And so kind of transitioning to the informed consent, I think that's a big part about clinical trials. So do you want to touch a little bit more on what that entails?
Yeah, so Dr. Zain, Heather, I'm sure you're aware that before you can see any patient ever, they do have to sign a bunch of paperwork, and it typically has a piece of paper that says, I consent to receiving treatment and medication here. Of course, you may not be able to do that if it's an emergency, but 99% of the time, they have to sign some paperwork. Same thing happened for clinical research, but it is way more detailed. Informed consent is one of the most, if not the most important concept in human clinical trials. And the informed consent form, that's what we call it, or ICF, is the tool that makes that possible. Ensures participants are provided with all the information they need to make an informed and confident decision about whether to take part in a trial. So this document covers a lot of things. It varies with length. I would say typically it's between 20 and 35 pages long. When you do come into the clinic, you have the opportunity to sit with it as long as you need. If it takes you no time at all to get through that, I'm happy to discuss it with you. Dr. Hussein, Heather, they're happy to discuss it with you. But if you honestly, it's too long, you don't have time for it today, or you're just not comfortable with moving forward, you're able to take that home with you, talk with your primary care physician about it if you feel like you just need to be more comfortable. Same thing with your friends and family. Like if you want to about it with them before you move forward, that is definitely something that you are able to do. Because we want you to be comfortable, and above all, we highlight your safety in a clinical trial and ethics of participation. So again, in this informed consent form, the things that you're going to find are the purpose and the design of the study. So it's going to tell you why it's being conducted and how it's structured. Some of the terms you might hear in that informed consent form are double blind, which means neither the research team, which would be us, nor yourself would know what treatment you are getting. You might hear randomized, which means that you would be randomized to a treatment, whether that is the investigational product that we are testing or a placebo, which is essentially an inactive drug or most commonly known as a sugar pill. It's going to go into more depth about that investigational product. So what it is, how it will be administered, and how often. It's going to go over the visit schedules, so you'll know how many visits are going to occur and what's going to happen during those visits, as well as your responsibilities throughout the trial. So, of course, these studies, they have a very strict schedule that they stick to, not only to ensure your safety, but to make sure the data we are collecting is cohesive and comprehensive throughout. You know, we don't want someone coming in at week 3 and another person coming in at week 7 and expecting that data to be replicatable. So we have to have you follow the strict schedule to make sure that the data that we are collecting is not only accurate, but it ensures your safety. So those are some of the things that you would be responsible for if you do participate in a clinical trial, is making sure, you know, you do come into those visits on time, and you're also completing the questionnaires that they have you complete. Same with e-diaries. Sometimes studies will have an e-diary that you'll have to complete. It might have you do some questionnaires on there or document when you take your medicine. So just some things to be aware of. And of course, when you decide to participate in a clinical study, it'll give you all that information you need in that informed consent form.
How does this process change with pediatric patients or minors?
So for pediatric patients and minors, typically it depends on the age. I believe anyone younger than 6 years of age would not be required to provide assent themselves. Typically 6 and older, unless there is some kind of cognitive disability involved, both the child participant and the parent or guardian would need to provide consent. And that would be documented on those informed consent forms. So,
Okay. And what's the difference between assent and consent?
so assent is basically the same thing as an informed consent form, but it's just geared towards the pediatric population. So they're definitely going to reduce the language. It's not going to be as many big words. It's definitely not going to be as many pages. It'll be geared toward the population that they are targeting. There might be some more pictures in there to help explain things, but they are the same document. They follow the same principle. They're just trying to give you all the information, meaning the parent and the child, the information they need to determine if this is going to be a good trial for them to participate in.
Got it. Thank you. And in terms of, clinical trials, I've heard of some of our patients, kind of being distrustful. Oh, I'm going to be a guinea pig. How do we combat that notion?
So I think that that's the most taboo thing about clinical research is they're like, oh, I don't want to be tested on. That sounds awful. And I get it in theory. Like I myself, I feel like if I were trying to be a participant in some clinical trials, I would have some of those same concerns. But it's really the steps that are involved in each phase in the clinical trial, like Dr. Jaffry explained, that really helps you understand it's not really as much of a testing thing as you think it is. Because again, these medications, most of the time, unless you participate in a phase 1, they've already been tried in different human participants. Each phase builds on the last. So if you're coming in and you're participating in a phase 3 trial,
Yeah.
they've already gone through 2 phases. And like Dr. Jaffrey had mentioned, 90% of clinical trials don't get past that. So like at a phase 3, they're typically, they're trying to test, whether or not it's going to be effective. They're also testing it against active comparators. So, if there's 2 psoriasis drugs on the market and we're investigating one, they might have a cohort where the other cohort would get an FDA approved medication already and see how those compare. But we really, again, just value your overall safety and your rights in this. So if this is something like you're not comfortable with, it's going to take up too much of your time. It's not something that you just even want to do. Like, we don't want to put you in a situation where you feel uncomfortable. We want to be able to give you all the information you need to make this decision. And also just know that we're there to help you every step of the way. So if there's anything that's making you uncomfortable, we want to know about it. And like Dr. Jaffry said, it might not be a symptom that's even related to the drug that may happen to you. You could, unfortunately, get into a car accident and break your arm. And that's something that we would have to report as a part of the clinical trial, just to make sure we have all the data we need to make sure that this medication that we are testing is not only safe for you, but it's working.
Yeah.
And I think something that's important to highlight, Dr. Hussein, is how you and Heather identify patients that you think would be good for a clinical trial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in terms of, these patients, and when we are selecting them, I mean, we know that there are some patients who would be a great candidate, and we also know when they are not a candidate. And I think
Right.
that's the clinical judgment.
Mhm.
That's really important to make a successful clinical trial patient, because it is a bit of a process.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to put our patients through any undue, harm or any, challenges that they don't need to go through if we don't think that they're a good patient for the study.
Yeah, whether that, be the criteria that's
Mhm.
involved, or again, like that length of participation.
Yeah.
If you don't have the time for it, you
Yeah.
got kids, you got a big family,
Mhm.
you got stuff going on. We're
Yeah.
not going to recommend something for you that wouldn't be a good fit.
Yeah.
But
And
of
also know,
course,
like, once you consent, you could always drop out of a trial. There's
at
no
any point,
compulsion.
Mhm.
no.
So just because you consent at one point, if you ever wanted to discontinue, that is totally your choice. And there is no judgment there.
Yeah. And one thing that I think is important to highlight is just because you consent to participate in a clinical trial, there's typically a screening period. And most screening periods, I would say, last, 2 to 6 weeks long. And it's essentially where we gather all the data that we need to make sure that you're going to be eligible for a clinical trial. Whether that's, blood work, urine, the questionnaires that you complete, the assessment that the physicians complete, just to make sure that you are going to fit that criteria for the study before we ever even think about giving you the treatment, whether, that's the actual investigational product or the placebo. So during that screening process, if you get uncomfortable and you're like, actually, I don't think this is for me.
Mhm.
We don't have to enroll you. You're able to withdraw. And
Mhm.
even if you do get the product again, like if it's just not for you, you don't have the time for it, you're not comfortable with it anymore, you can withdraw. And again, there's no negative consequences at all,
Yeah.
not from us and not from your providers. We just want you to be comfortable. And just because this one didn't work out doesn't mean there might not be a better one for you in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great discussion that we had regarding, the patient perspective of clinical trials. So I want to throw it back to Dr. Jaffry and kind of talk about what's in store for the future for clinical trials, and particularly interested in how AI is shaping that.
Amazing. Very, very interesting question. I think it's $1 million question because every morning I wake up and I hear new things, and I think it's the world is changing so fast. Is amazing. I think not only that I'm seeing that in US that we are advancing very fast, but worldwide I'm seeing humongous growth, uh, especially in Asia, in China, and many other places, which are really has embraced AI 5 or 7 years ago. And the technologies that are being used and utilized and all those things. So AI has a very big use in drug discovery. So more companies are finding out more molecules through AI technology based on because AI can check like millions of different molecules or products or chemicals in a very short time and can match disease states with certain molecules. So a lot of things which were done manually and used to take months and years can be done in 1 minute. So number one. Number second, I think that certain areas will be affected by AI in a positive way, that a lot of new AI tools are being made, which will help by the software can diagnose a disease by taking a video or a picture of that, because it will be able to match that skin condition with millions of pictures which are already taken, and will make a final diagnosis probably few percentage higher than a very trained physician can be. The same thing is happening in radiology. If you think about it, that radiology, that one project we are working on, and I think the most fascinating thing I've ever done, we are working with one of the largest AI companies in the world to really find out coronary artery internal structure, looking at the plaques, any blockages, or anything without going inside the coronary artery, which was a process of intervention cardiologists by doing angiography, angioplasty. So now there are new AI techniques that a CT scan, which was never used or considered as a gold standard to check the coronary artery size and the blood flow, because that's the most important part of the body that pumps the blood throughout the heart. And among the heart, the most important thing is coronary artery, because it pumps the blood, fresh blood, to the muscles of the heart. So if anything happens, so almost like 90% problems of the heart happens because of rare condition, disorders, formation of plaques, high cholesterol, diabetes. All these things do one thing, creates a blockage in the coronary artery. So without going inside, now you can take a CT scan in 30 seconds, and within 1 minute, you can tell there are 2 blockages, there are 3 blockages, the blockage is more than 75%. You should go and get the stent. So those things were not available just like few months ago. So in last 6 months, I've seen more advancements, and I'll keep on seeing more advancements. We'll see the discovery will become very fast. We'll find cures for the cancer. My personal prediction is in next 10 years, we'll find cure for cancer almost like 90%. Right now, in the last 20 years, we have reached to almost like 35 to 36% cancers, all body types, including dermatology, have become curable. Just by 2002, there were only 10%. So the jump of 20% in the last 20 years, I'm expecting next 10 years with all this technology, knowledge, AI, we can compile all the information. And I think we will use it to the best use to basically find the best cures for our future generations.
Wow, that is exciting.
Yeah.
I
That's
can't
very
wait to see
exciting.
what the future holds.
Yeah, thank you.
So, yeah. So I think this was a great foundation to discuss what clinical trials are, what they entail, and what is in store for us in the future. Um, this is kind of a unique type of topic that, we have on Skinside Out, but I think it's really exciting. And, Heather and I and, Dr. Amna will be seeing patients, and this is almost kind of like a new phase of my career as well. This is something I haven't done before, but I'm so excited, being able to help patients in an entirely different way, but making such a big impact on their lives. So I am super excited. I am really um, blessed to be able to participate in these studies to help people. And I really do value the relationship with Revival, therapeutics and Noor Dermatology. And I think that we're going to be able to make a huge impact in the community and in the world, with these trials.
I think it's very intelligent as a physician too to want to start doing clinical trials, because you're thinking about the patient first, and you're trying to think of different ways that we can offer effective treatment options for our patients. And I think that's going to be huge for
Yeah.
dermatology.
And something I've always been really interested in my career was always being at the cutting edge. I
Yeah.
feel like, having the latest technology, the latest advancements in, cosmetics and surgery has always been, really important to me, using like the newest medications that have come out to market. But now this is an entirely different arena where we're actually bringing new drugs into trial and, seeing how they can really help patients. So I'm really excited.
Dr. Zain, can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
I think I've known you now for some time. I know MJ, I know Heather. So I want to make a prediction. And I think we can review it like after 2 years and 5 years. I think you three have the best potential to build the largest dermatology cancer research centers in the world. You have the tools, you have knowledge, you have inspiration, you have aspiration. I think you are really set for the right state. And I think with the mindset and with the openness and also desire, like to help others, I think is amazing. It's very contagious. I feel very excited. There are very few people, there are less than 1% doctors who gets involved in research. I think you are really primed to be the best place in your lifetime because advancements will be huge in coming years. I think we are really looking forward for those exciting times. But I think with the mindset that you have, if you can do that, if you can continue that, I think in next 5 years, you have the potential to be conducting the largest number of studies. On the top of that, you are sitting at the mecca of all the research. Raleigh, North Carolina has been like known. I've been going to that area since 2000 and I've seen the growth of the area. So I think the things that are available to you, many organizations do not have that. And with our support and with your holding hands, I think we can all bring up one of the best research centers. I think we should try to go for the best, building the best center in Raleigh.
Thank you. And I think we're really lucky to have such a reputable and experienced organization that you've created with Revival Research Institute. And I think that we're able to, really accelerate this because I could not imagine as a private practice, dermatologist, managing my own practice and even having the capacity and bandwidth to do this. So partnering with you and your institution is allowing me to leverage my resources and really focus on the patients and really make it a success because there is so much behind the scenes that your organization does that there is no way I have the resources or the bandwidth. I mean, it is, I don't know how many employees you have currently, but there is a whole team behind the scenes and they are all professional, top notch. They have protocols for everything. And then having MJ in our space to help us along the way. I mean, she's an invaluable resource and I definitely could not do this on my own. So thank you.
No, thank you so much. I think it's a team effort. I think each one of us, can contribute a little, but also we have to keep a focus on our patients, which is the center of attraction.
Yep.
For this discussion, I think we can do so much for our population, which is there, like current population and the future populations. I think with your support, with the team efforts, really staying focused on finding out better molecules, better drugs, I think we can achieve anything. As you know that, I truly believe that it's just a will and desire. And I think with young people like you, I think we can achieve a lot of milestones together.
Thank you. So I think this was a great discussion on clinical trials. I think we're going to wrap it up now. But if you have any questions, how can we reach you or MJ if someone has questions about clinical trials?
So
So
that
I
just,
will,
yeah, go
I'll
ahead.
speak on that one. As Dr. Hussein mentioned, we are working directly in clinic with Dr. Hussein. So as you guys are coming in, we encourage you to ask questions, whether that's geared towards them or myself. Please feel free to do so. And even if it isn't about these clinical trials that we are currently offering, we welcome you to share the indications and the interest that you would have in pursuing clinical trials because just because we don't have it now doesn't mean we won't have it in the future, and we are targeting more clinical trials at this given moment. So with that, again, we encourage you to ask questions. You can come in clinic, you can speak with us, you can, go to our website. We have Noor Dermatology. You'll find us on there. You'll also find us at revivalresearch.org. And then we have a direct line for clinical research as well, which is 984-306-0409. If you call that number, you'll most likely get me or someone from our call center that'll be happy to discuss things with you. But we're very excited to be involved here and get to know you a little bit better. And of course, we're always here to answer any questions that you have.
How about you, Dr. Jaffry? Any parting words?
No, I think you all are doing amazing job. Like, please, let's continue the work that you guys are doing. But I think this podcast is very informative. We need to make sure that everybody can listen to that or have reached to that. So I think I just wish you best of luck in your future. And anytime you need us, please let us know. MJ can provide all the information.
All right. Well, thank you, folks. So that's it for today. So we will be resuming our normal scheduling in terms of our scheduled talks, but I do think that this was just a unique opportunity to really introduce clinical trials to our audience. So until next time, Skinside
Out.
out.